Something a little bit different for you today. Normally when I come to Spain, we climb a mountain or at least a very big hill. Today instead, we're going to visit the mines of Mazarrón. So yeah, this is an abandoned mine or abandoned mining site that I think closed down in the 1960s. But before that was a mining operation for approximately 2,700 years, at least as far as we know. Dating back to the Bronze Age, it's been mined for lead, silver, copper, iron and zinc. And we have the privilege of being able to walk around the site pretty much unhindered today. I shall have to be very careful because there are open shafts, there are all kinds of hazards, but we'll have a look around anyway. So yeah, the coloration of what you're seeing over there in the hills is probably mostly iron. The greenish bits might be copper. I don't suppose there's very much silver there, because if there was, people wouldn't stop mining. I think the mine was closed down in the 1960s because the conditions there were just too unsafe for the workers. Before we go any further, I'm just going to stop and listen, because over there I think I can hear a hoopoe. Don't know if you'll have been able to hear that on the video, but it's a rather striking bird, the hoopoe, and it has a call that sort of goes boop boop boop. Perhaps if I made that noise for long enough, I might attract one to come and see me. So I imagine a lot of what we're seeing here in the side is either unmined seams of various minerals, or it could be tailings that have been tipped here. But actually that stuff there looks like maybe it's an iron seam that hasn't been mined out. There was an information board at the car park, but unfortunately rather too defaced to be able to actually see what most of it said. Anyway, we're just going to have a look around, see what we can see. I'll talk a little bit about the history of the region, but most of what we're going to do today is just going to be pointing at things and going, ooh. So as far as I know, we are free to explore most of the buildings here. Like I say, we're going to have to be a little bit careful because there are numerous hazards. So up on the top here, there is the remains of what looks like a pithead winch over there. We'll have a look at that in a minute, and we'll just have a look out over here. So steps, well, the remains of steps going down the hill. And what we got here looks like maybe the remains of some sort of aqueous extraction. Those things down there, they don't look like dwellings. Not all of them have even got openings on the sides. So I think those might have been like settling ponds. So maybe something was mixed with water, settled out over there and concentrated in some way, or washed. I think alum was extracted here as well as the metals. So it's possible that this bit down here was all about dissolving things out and extracting those. At the edge of this pond down here I can see a crust of some sort of mineral, some sort of salt or something forming there. That pond looks like it might be something to do with mitigation of the environmental damage from this site. Obviously all of the disruption that's happened here is got quite an environmental impact. There's not an awful lot growing here. You can see these soils here are probably quite damaged, probably quite toxic and contaminated. some of it with natural minerals that have been mined, but probably with some of the stuff that's been thrown away. Anyway, while we're up at this level, I think we'll go over and have a look at this pithead winch over there. And while I'm walking over, a few words about safety, I suppose. I'm here on my own today, which is maybe not the most brilliant idea. Somebody else with me would have been good to have a buddy, but I'm here on my own. However, the people at home know exactly where I've come, and I've told them when to expect me back. So, you know, if I'm not back on time, they'll try and contact me. If they can't contact me, they'll know something's wrong. That looks like it could have been a water tank. You can see an outlet there. I don't think we're going to find a door. No, I'm pretty sure that's a water tank. And again, the remains of buildings in a very dilapidated state. I'm not going to be collecting or taking home anything from this site. I don't have mineral rights to collect things here, so whilst we might have a look at some interesting bits of rock and minerals, if we find anything, I won't be taking them home because I don't have the right to do that. And I won't be taking home any archaeological pieces or anything like that. I suspect these buildings and sites have been picked over quite thoroughly anyway, but again, not my stuff to take. So yeah, big excavation here, probably a tailings pond, you know, for perhaps contaminated water to be just dumped and soaked away. And up here, I think this could be a top of a shaft here, so we're going to approach with caution. Something down there, some sort of basement or whatever. Yeah, and again, this looks like it was a tank for perhaps concentration of ores or something. Lots and lots of iron staining around the edges. I'm not sure if that's actually the remains of maybe iron plating around the edges. It could be, or it could be the remains of minerals that have just crystallized on there. Yeah, gonna be super careful. Don't lean on any walls. Oh, by the way, over there, these mountains in the distance, that's the range known as Las Moreras, the mountains of the mulberries. That was kind of plan A, was to climb one of these peaks here today, but the weather up there looks like it's going to be quite inhospitable up the top there. We've had a few days of rain, and up on the top of the hills it's still quite cloudy. There's still condensation happening up there, so I think it probably would have been quite unpleasant, a walk up there. So we'll do that another time if we can. Anyway, I'm going to go through here. Okay, we can get to the other side of this tank now. And big machinery. So presumably there would have been an engine of some sort here, probably originally a steam engine, perhaps later replaced with a diesel engine for this pithead machinery. So presumably there's a shaft underneath where we are now, so need to be a little bit careful. Don't think the shaft goes down there. Bit of a shame to see this in such a state. It's perhaps deserves to be turned into a museum. Yeah, I'm just going to stay clear of this bit because I might be standing on top of a capped shaft, and who knows how safe that is today. So I think we'll go around the side here, see if we can have a look at that. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get a chance to look at the shaft. I'm not climbing up there, I just don't trust the condition of this thing. Interesting little holes in the hillside there. I wonder if those are natural or if those were cut out for some purpose or other. Right. I can't really tell you very much about, you know, the things we're looking at here. So lots of little cubicles here, and they're tiled. So shower rooms, toilets, probably. Can have a look over the top here. Yeah, there's one that's slightly more intact. Probably toilets, showers, washrooms, and the like for the mine workers. Okay, up there we've got what looks like a wall, but it's hollow. So I don't know if that was a conveyor of some sort, or maybe it was just a passageway that people used to be able to go up there. It's odd that it's covered. There's so much to see here, and we only really have the morning to do it, so I'll try and get as much covered as I can. So this building's really interesting. So arched windows here. That looks a fairly old arch, actually. Certainly this back wall. Well, this back wall looks like it was just cobbled together from cement and local stones, and it's collapsed here, and there's been some gravel and stuff spilled through it. But this back wall looks really, really rough and old, and this bit of building here looks a little bit newer. But if you recognise what we're looking at here, certainly like that little alcove over there looks quite modern, or quite a modern addition. But some of the other bits here, little alcove there. I do wonder if this was a chapel, actually. Plastered walls, little alcoves for various unknown purposes. Brick paved floor. Don't know. There isn't really a map, as far as I know, of the site identifying what all of these buildings would have been. So we are just guessing, really. So yeah, there's a better view of the end of that wall thing there. There are steps going up to it, so we'll see if we can get up there. Maybe the purpose of that will become a little bit less obscure if we can see it close up. Ah, steps here. Right, okay. This bit here is obviously quite modern, this wall. An almond tree. Complete with almonds. We're only just past blossom time, actually. I have never managed to get out here early enough to see the almond blossom, but there we go. There's an almond tree full of nuts. Steps look reasonably safe. There's a view of another little pond or pool or something down there, and the site. From this vantage point you can see the extent of the site. Okay. Well, we'll just have a look over here first. So everywhere you look, little buildings. Oh, that looks like a mine shaft. We're going to look down a deep mine shaft now, so if you find that kind of thing disturbing, now might be a good time to close your eyes. It looks like you used to have a fence around it, maybe. Okay, carefully now. Yeah, that goes down a long way. Sorry if that's gave you vertigo. Okay, we're away from the mine shaft now. If you had your eyes closed, you can open them now. I imagine there must be a few vertical shafts in this area, with maybe all served by this machinery. Lots and lots of this giant fennel, and it really is giant. Okay, looks like we can get through to the steps, but here's the end of that, or a piece of that passageway or tunnel or whatever it is. Yeah, I wonder if there was a water, I wonder if it was a water supply, and maybe it was covered just to stop the water getting contaminated. Oh, I don't know, that looks burnt in there. So maybe it was a flue. Maybe it was a chimney. Just designed to carry away smoke and noxious gases away from the site. There's lots of soot and blackening here. So yeah, I think this might have been a flue. I mean, there are ways of smelting metals where you use the natural draw of a flue to provide the airflow for the smelting. So it's possible that they had a great big chimney going up the hill here, massive draw on it as the hot air goes up there, and then that would produce a lot of air intake at the bottom where the furnace was. Whew. It's a hot day. I thought it was going to be a bit cooler than this when I set out, and so I've come out in jeans, and I'm kind of wishing I put my shorts on now. So if you hear me panting, it's either because I'm out of breath from walking up and climbing upstairs and whatnot, or it could just be that I'm hot. I think it would be interesting to get over here and explore what these brightly coloured or variously coloured rocks are over here, but I'm not sure we're going to get a chance to do that. Right, let's have a look down here. I think we're walking away from the site now, so maybe we won't go too far down here. Oh, quite the view though. I think that's going to be the thumbnail. So yeah, those look like maybe older buildings up there, but it's very hard to tell because a lot of the architecture here is just built from local stone, and so it's not going to be all that different across the span of millennia. Okay, so here's it's a flock of corvids up there. I don't know if they're, I think they might be jackdaws. Anyway, so here's a plan then. I think we'll walk back round on this level across the top there where I was before, and maybe up to this bit over there on the peak and explore that a bit, and then we might go across and see if we can see what's happening over on that side of the site. There's a lot of this lovely blue flower around here, which is some species of bugloss. It seems a lot more upright. I think this could be Viper's bugloss. I think this is possibly a different species. I will try to identify it. According to my Seek app, this is still Cretan Viper's bugloss, so it's the same species according to my app as we saw down on the lowlands. It may just be that it's growing with a different habit here because of the soil, because of the conditions. It might well be that something about the drainage here or the minerals in the soil just cause it to take this more upright form here. Or it might be a subspecies or variety of that thing. Or the app might be slightly wrong. That can happen. There's a rabbit latrine there. This fennel seems to be pollinated by flies more than bees. So these hollow bricks here, relatively modern again, so this bit's probably 20th century. Back down past the almond tree. So I doubt very much if that was planted there. I think that's more likely grown from a discarded almond or something a bird has dropped. There's another almond tree there inside this building. So these are very likely self-seeded almond trees. Oh, I don't know, this could have been a little garden, I suppose. But yeah, it's not a very old tree. So, and actually it still has some of last year's almonds on it. Can't get in there because there's a big puddle of mud, but the really dark bits on there are last year's almonds, or at least the husks of them. I can hear voices. I'm not alone anymore, but yeah, this is open to the public and there are no restrictions, but there are also no safeguards, so you're really at the mercy of your own common sense and caution when you come here. Probably worth mentioning that. So yeah, as I say, so copper was mined here and zinc, from which you can make brass, but if you want to make bronze you need tin, and tin was not mined here. In fact, I don't think tin is present here. So the tin to make bronze, and the Romans especially, but the Phoenicians as well, was super into bronze, and so the tin for making that bronze might well have come all the way from Cornwall and would have been traded and carried around by, you know, ships. I think there are other sources of tin in the Mediterranean region, but yeah, the tin to make bronze, certainly some of it would have come from Cornwall. And I feel like what we're looking at here is ores that have been smelted. This is clinker or something like that from the furnaces after it's been roasted or burnt to extract the metals. The two Phoenician shipwrecks that were found in the harbour down at Puerto de Mazarrón one of them is considered the best preserved Phoenician shipwreck that's ever been found. Even though it's thousands of years old, remains of ropes and other perishable materials were found. So the better one of those two wrecks is still preserved under the sea. They've built an enclosure around it, but they've left it in situ, presumably just to make sure that when it is eventually excavated, they can use the best methods. So again, we've got these things, these great big things built into the side of the hill here. I'm pretty sure these would have been some kind of processing thing. So ores might have been dumped in the top there. Maybe there was a coal or coke fire going in the bottom and liquid metals flowing out into pools at the bottom. These looked like furnaces or smelting operations of some sort. Okay, up here, this is probably the most modern bit here. They're starting to see concrete being used for the buildings, so there might not be very much to see here. Yeah, concrete with a metal roof, so that's probably the newest part of the site. So I think we'll skip around that and we'll go here. Yeah, that's another view of those two things there, and there's a little arched kind of entryway or something. Can't help thinking that those are remains of furnaces of some sort. Again, they've just got a very burnt look to them. So from up here we can really see the extent of more modern bits of works down there, I think, and there's runoff there that's caused ponds and things to be bright red in colour. I can see a couple of people down there, first people I've seen. Another pithead crane there, that's one's looking more modern than the one we looked at before. That's entirely steel. The one we looked at before was timber and steel. And that over there looks like maybe modern, like a dam or something they've put in there to try to contain the contamination on the site here. I think we will go down there and have a look at that bit down there. I think some of these round things down here are the tops of shafts. So again, we may poke our nose in a shaft. I'll give you fair warning so that if you're not fond of looking at that sort of thing, you get a chance to close your eyes and miss it. Oh, more people over there, kids on mountain bikes by the look of it. So that looks like it might have been the powerhouse up there, perhaps for the electricity generation. Maybe we should go in there. Actually, there, I doubt there'll be any remains of any machinery up there. I'm seeing rabbits all over this hillside here. Perhaps I will poke my nose in there. Ah, that's not a metal roof, I've just noticed. It's a roof made from this stuff, asbestos cement tile. So we won't hang around here for too long, inhaling deeply. And certainly we'll try not to break any of it up. Yeah, but by the look of those insulators up there, I think we're probably looking at the generator house. Rather vandalised. Oh, there's lots of pipes here and tiles. So again, lots of little alcoves. So I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe washrooms. Remains of steel tracks here. Maybe this was where the generator was. They don't go anywhere, but perhaps that was for wheeling the generator machinery in and out in order to work on it. Interesting little status symbol there, the pillar with a ball on the top, and there's another one here. Even though this bit here doesn't seem to be particularly grand or anything, and not the governor's house or anything like that, there's definitely some sort of industrial operation here. Broken electrical insulators there. Not very old ones actually. But yeah, interestingly grand entryway to what is essentially a rather industrial looking building. Okay, well, we're going to go back down through here. I think we can continue further on the lower path and get down to the front of the works and see what we can see down there. I might stop for a bite to eat in a minute. I brought refreshments with me. An old little brick thing there. I wonder if that was a little shrine or something. It's just there on its own. It's not one of a pair, so it's not a gatepost or anything. So I wonder if that was a little shrine or something similar. Right, I'm going to find a bit of shade to sit in and we'll have a little bite to eat. 11's. Well, this looks about right. There's a rock here, a flattish rock I can sit on before we head off into what looks like, frankly, quite an alien landscape. My 11's snack is this little empanadilla, pollo rulo. I think that's like shredded chicken. We'll find out in a minute when I bite into it. Well, chicken and something. I think it might be like sweet onions, actually. There's a real sweetness to it. Actually, nice little empanadilla. Kind of tastes like a cheese and onion sauce, maybe. Tastes a bit like goat cheese. I'm not sure if it is, but there's a tangy cheese in there. And to follow, just a few chocolate coated pistachios. I think this chocolate coated salted pistachios, which I think sounds like a fine idea. Yeah, they are. Chocolate coated roasted pistachios with coarse salt grains in there. Really, really nice. I think I might get a few more packets of that to take home with me. So now we're going to head off through this area here, which is barren and, well, at least colourful. And maybe we'll get a chance to see some of the minerals that they were interested in here. So yeah, I think the red and probably a lot of the yellow is very likely iron minerals, various oxides of iron. Greenish bits there could be copper, or might just be clays or schist. So I think this whole area here was probably at one point a system of volcanic vents, and so dissolved minerals, iron, lead, copper, silver, dissolved in superheated steam, vented through these hills, and as they did, and as they cooled, deposited their minerals. I think that's how these mineral formations came to be here. Not exactly a volcano, but a system of hot springs fed by superheated water percolating up and venting from underground volcanic or magma activity. Don't quote me on that, I think that's what happened here. But yeah, some of this looks very unrefined here. There's lots of very dark chunks of iron ore. I don't know if we'll see any traces of galena, which is the ore of lead that was here. It might well be that the lead was mined out long before the operation continued being mined for iron and the other metals, lead being comparatively easy to extract and separate. I think it's as well that it's a dry day when I'm coming down here, because I don't suppose this is a very nice walk down this little slope here in the wet. It looks like it's going to be very claggy, probably quite unpleasant, possibly slightly unsafe. Yeah, I don't know if these bits here are mined, just stockpiles of mined materials that have been stacked here, or if that was still the natural hillside. I'm gonna say it's the natural hillside because here we've got, you know, all sorts of minerals intermingled with the rocks here. In fact, we may very well be looking at these cracks in the rocks here. You may very well be looking at the vents through which the materials emerged. Kind of greenish rock there, but I don't think that's copper. Right, we're down on the lower levels now, so we're going to have a look down here quite carefully. And like I say, I'll warn you if we're about to poke our heads over a precipitous edge or anything. Well, I know what peligro means. It means danger. So yeah, that could be copper minerals there. That could be very low grade, like very low grade malachite or something like that. I mean, it could be silver, because I think some of the ores of silver are green. So there are other elements that produce green coloration. One that springs to mind in particular is arsenic, and arsenic is often associated with iron deposits. And on the suspicion of that, I will certainly wash my hands thoroughly before consuming any more food. It actually doesn't look like there's an easy way across there. There's a watercourse here, not a river by any means, but there's a channel that's been carved out by the runoff. This dam, or actually looks like maybe a landfill, has been added quite recently. I'm pretty sure that is the head of a shaft there, probably another one over there. So we'll carry on down here. And again, this is the natural rock here, and you can just see from all the different colours in here, you can tell this is mineral rich geology here. So you might be tempted to ask, I mean, why aren't they doing something about this environmental disaster that's happening here? And because obviously everything that runs out of here is going to be very highly contaminated. It's going to be full of all sorts of stuff you don't want in your drinking water, although if it's in the geology here, that's probably a reality anyway. So that is what they are doing here. So this is a management system here that you can see how recently this has been built. So this looks like they are building various things to contain the contamination, which may very well mean that this site becomes out of bounds to people fairly soon. So we might be, you know, this might be an opportunity of a lifetime really to get here and have a look around the place before it's closed off to the public. Okay, these structures here, there's one here, several down there, and the ones down over there that said Peligro el Pozo, they are, well, Pozo means well, or I suppose deep hole. This is a mine shaft here, so again, we're going to poke our head over the top. If you're not fond of looking at that sort of thing, this is your opportunity to close your eyes. I'll tell you when to open them again. That goes down a long, long way. I'm not going to cast a stone down there. Right, you can open your eyes again now. I'm not going to cast a stone down there. The temptation is to throw a stone down there and listen to see when it hits the bottom. I'm not going to do that because for all I know, there could be people down the bottom there, potholers or something like that. So we will resist that temptation. But here's something interesting. Down here, a piece of some quite transparent mineral, possibly calcite, but it's got an odd structure to it. I wonder if that's selenite or something. It's got a kind of, well, you can see a lininess to it. I am still recording. It's got little lines on the surface there. I don't know if you can see that. There's a few bits of it around actually. Here's another bit here. Lovely little piece there actually, but like I said, I don't have the rights to collect minerals here, so I shan't be doing that. There's quite a lot of little bits of it here though. Yeah, I wonder if that is selenite or something. It's got a structure to it. It doesn't look quite flaky enough for mica. Found a shady spot, and I just wanted to show you this on the close-up camera. So I found a little shady spot because it's quite difficult to record this in full sunlight. But this mineral, it's definitely not quartz. It doesn't sound hard. It makes a kind of dull click when it's tapped on something. And look, if I just get my fingernail on here, you can see it abrades with a fingernail, which means a Mohs hardness of like 2 or something, which is probably too soft for calcite and probably indicates gypsum. So yeah, we're talking about a gypsum mineral, and so I think this is selenite, and it's probably been deposited around those mine shafts. In fact, I think those vertical mine shafts might have been following the natural tubes down into the seams, and so this has been discarded because this is not what they were mining for. They were mining for silver and stuff that was deposited in those tubes. Anyway, back into the sunshine now. Right, we'll probably have a little wander around. There's some quite old buildings down here. Well, they look old, and there's some terraces, but I don't think there's very much else to see down here. So I'm going to have a wander around. We'll look at least a couple more things before we go. So the remains of a very stout looking wall there, and then we can go up here and overlook the lower part of the site. Again, more shaft pit heads there. Okay, well, oh, now that looks interesting, doesn't it? How do we get over there? Can we get over there? But there's the view back up the site. Gosh, what a long way we've come. There's the generator house up on the top of the hill there. Another mine shaft gear over there. So quite a hub of mining activity, clearly, in its day. But yeah, I think we might go over there and see if we can figure out what that thing is over there. Okay, well, that was not so easy to get up the slopes here. I didn't want to climb up that bit there in case I slid down into the gully there, but there was a route up at that end. Well, this looks really old, and I don't know what we're looking at here. It doesn't seem to have any rooms inside of it. It's just 3 holes, so I think this must be a furnace. Or a kiln or something like that. We'll see if we can get up on top, because if it is a furnace, it will have a flue, I think. There's no way I can get up there. But yeah, we're looking at quite burnt looking rocks here again, and little bubbly. Yeah, this pattern here, this does look like furnace slag. There's bubbles in it, so some kind of furnace. Not a very big one, so perhaps one of the older ones. And I can't actually see a flue, so it might be that this was the vent and those were the air feeds. So maybe material was shoveled in there and smoke came out here or something. I don't know. If you know more about this structure, do let me know in the comments. But yeah, I can't get up there. It would be interesting to try to get up the top there to see if it's got a flue, but I'm just not even going to attempt it. From this vantage point, we can see there's, yeah, more structures over there. Again, really thick walled stuff, so again could be some sort of smelting operation. And down here again, things with holes in the walls, so again could be remnants of smelting. In fact, I can see a covered, I don't know, not a sewer but a waterway or something like that, that runs right the way through there, and it's built with bricks, so not an especially modern system there, because obviously that if that was 20th century, that would just be pipes. And here's definitely a piece of slag from a furnace. It's all bubbly. You can see how that's been burnt. It's bubbly, it's glassy, it's not very heavy for its size, so it's like a piece of pumice, like a piece of volcanic pumice, but artificial. This is the result of smelting iron, and this is probably the silica minerals. Well, there's still probably a fair bit of iron in there, but this is mostly the silica minerals left as slag in the bottom of the furnace after finishing. Right, now I've got to get back down. So if you're an artist, you may well recognize some of these colors. There's ochre and umber. These are iron minerals, and ground up very finely, they are used as pigments, iron oxides. Right. If it does it, these are actually finely divided. This stuff here, I reckon, has been milled. This has been pounded up, ready for refinement. I think this whole pile here is not natural. It's material that's been ground up, ready for smelting, and then was never used. Okay, right, gonna head way back up there now and see what we can see up the top there. So yeah, across here you can see the little ponds that have collected the water. There's one there stained dark red brown, others over there that are bright yellow. These are just minerals and things that have leached out of the soil, possibly quite acidic. There's probably, associated with the iron here, there's probably quite a fair bit of sulfur, and so those are, well, probably not quite sulfuric acid, but probably acids including sulfuric acid. So there's a structure here, it's all broken down, and I do wonder if that was another protective structure protecting a shaft here that's just managed to bridge itself or something. I don't know, might just be a little hut. It does look like it had a doorway. Yeah, it had a doorway, so that must be just a little hut of some sort. But yeah, you can see that's not just water there. They're probably associated with the iron in the soil here. There's probably sulfur, so that could well be something quite acidic in that pond, in that little puddle. Similarly over here, some of that may just be rust, it's just iron oxide, but very likely there are some other things in there that are perhaps not quite so benign. Well, while we're here, I think we might as well go and have a look down that shaft and this shaft. So again, if you're squeamish about looking down from great heights, now's the time to close your eyes. Okay, you're safe to open them again. And this one here, well, it's a bit more built up than the previous ones we've looked at. So this one may well have had another one of these wheels and winches on top of it more recently. Again, I'm just going to pick my approach here. I don't think I'm going to step on that bit. I'm certainly not going to climb up those rungs. Okay, if you dislike looking down holes, close your eyes now. Okay, you're good to open them again. Right, okay, now I'm going to head up the hill there and see if there's any more interesting buildings we can look at. I'm going to turn left up the top here because there are some other buildings to look at, including some of those chimneys. We'll see if we can figure out what those are about. Yeah, so up here, this bit on the top here almost looks like a fort, but I don't know if it is. I don't know why it would be, but we'll see if we can get up there and have a look. Okay, more of these very toxic looking ponds here and dilapidated buildings. And yeah, this bit up on the top here just has a look of a fort to it. This bit on the right here is definitely quite modern. There's concrete beams there. But over here, this bit down here looks really quite old. But like I say, it's really hard to tell because local stone is abundant here. You know, the hillsides are just made of rocks, and so these styles of construction could be anything from Roman to, you know, early 20th century. Yeah, these ponds look a bit could just be iron, but there's nothing alive in there. Yeah, what do you reckon to this arch here then? Made with fired bricks, quite thin fired bricks, so not exactly modern pattern bricks there. They're a bit flatter than I would expect a normal modern brick to be, but quite square. Bits of tile in the wall. Yeah, I think that's, I don't know, I think that could be fairly old. What do you think? If you know anything about architecture, archaeology, anything like that, let me know in the comments. It might be just that somebody wanted a nice looking brick arch with a staircase over it and built it in a old-fashioned style. Who knows? These structures here do appear to be dwellings though. They've just got that feel about them. Let's have a look inside. Well, behind the wall. Not actually very much to see here because it's all tumbled down. But they've just got the feel of residences rather than utilitarian buildings to them. Wooden door frame. Shan't linger under that too long because it's crumbling. I suppose it could be just like the, you know, the cookhouse maybe for the staff, for the mining workers. These look like bullet holes in the walls, so I don't know if that's just people taking pot shots. Target practice. That does look like bullet holes though. It could be, I mean, Spain had a civil war. It could be that this was a place where people, no, it just looks, that one there looks like maybe somebody, there's a grouping on the wall there, so I think that's probably just somebody hung something up there for target practice. Okay, rather than go all the way around the edge of this quarry here, we can go up some tumble down steps over there. But also there's a, this looks like the entrance to a shaft or some mine or something, a tunnel. Yeah. Hello? No, no echo in there, but it does go back a long way. Mining tunnel of some sort maybe? Or maybe just a tunnel to the basement of this structure up here. Right, I'm going to put the camera away now because I might need my hands to steady me going up these, what's left of these stairs here. Okay, I'll go up there in a minute. But while we're here, we'll take a look in this bit here, which again looks very industrial. So it may have been another generator house. What's that about? That wall there looks really, really old. This bit here obviously isn't. And there's mountings here for something or other. Some kind of heavy machinery, perhaps a steam boiler or something like that. Cast concrete, so mid 20th century, so not probably a steam engine, but maybe a boiler, steam turbine, who knows. It's very green here, that's very interesting, lots of green. This could be the remains of a corroded copper boiler or something like that. Right, up steps. Of course, some of it might have been just boiling water for mineral extraction. So it might well be that there was a purpose for which they needed a large amount of hot water for, oh, let me get my breath back, So yeah, it might be that they just needed a lot of hot water for some purpose, for extracting minerals of some sort. But again, a great big tank here. But yeah, this bit here has got a bit of a kind of castle vibe to it. Piece of very thick glass there. It's not from a bottle. Okay, I think this could be another shaft here, so close your eyes if you don't want to see down there. Oh, we can't really see down there, but that is another mine shaft there. But yeah, this whole vaulted bit here has got a bit of a fort vibe to it, especially that bit over there. Can't help thinking that maybe there was some, perhaps strategic, or maybe this is where they kept all the money. You know, maybe this was the treasury for the mining operation or something. So we do need to be a bit careful, because here we've got sinkholes. So all of these mine shafts that we've seen up there and everywhere go down into the ground. But below the ground there'll be galleries of mine shafts following various seams of minerals. Unfortunately, when those collapse, they will eventually, that collapse will find its way to the surface, and here we've got a sinkhole. I'm not going any closer than that. So yeah, our trip here today is not completely without risk. So again, a great big, oh, this was a, yeah, this would have been a mounting point for another one of those big winches, I think. Which means through here, I think you're going to find another shaft. Close your eyes if you're not willing to, no. Well, somewhere in there, maybe. But again, I think that's a boiler house or something. I can see a chute that goes down from the top. We're not going to go in there. Although clearly, obviously, judging by the litter, people do. Yeah. But yeah, some sort of machinery here. Perhaps just winching trucks or whatever, winching a railway system up the hill or something. But what an interesting sight. And we've really only scratched the surface, I think. Yeah, speaking of scratch the surface, so there's some timber structure there. Now that might just be the timbers of that old winch thing laid down in the soil here, or it might be a timber cover for a great big hole. So I think I'll stay to the beaten path. But yeah, there are more structures further up in the hills over there. There's more to see over that way. There's a great big crack in the hillside over there, which is quite interesting. But it's out of scope for our visit today. I've got to draw a line somewhere. But here's a big crack in the hillside that we can go and have a look at. Oh, I think we can actually go through. That'll be nice. Well, this is not a tunnel. This is there's a window there and a door. I wonder if that's like an old jail or something. I wonder if that's where they locked up the miscreants. Should we go inside? Should we go inside? Let's make a judgment at the door. It's solid rock. I've got lights. Let's take a look inside. Okay, well, here we go. As I say, I've got lights. Yeah, we're looking at solid rock, although there is loose stuff above here. We probably should have hard hats on if we're going in here. Doesn't look like there's very much to see in here. It's just an excavated hole. And there's the little bit to the window that goes out. That's interesting. There's a double window there, but no way into that bit in between. Interesting. Okay, well, here's the inside of the place. That's where they hung their coat. Not much else to see, but an interesting little dwelling. There's the remains of what would have been a door frame here. You can see plaster up to a line. There was probably a wooden frame there for a door, an internal door. Another one here, and possibly another one here. So, and this bit here is peculiar because there's some sort of space in there that we can't get to. Well, anyway, hopefully that was an interesting little detour. Now we'll continue down here. So, okay, well, there's another one here. Is there going to be anything different to see inside there? Again, it's cut into solid rock, so I'm not unduly worried about collapse. I think this one's even smaller than the one before. Let's have the light back on and we'll have a look. Yeah, it's just literally a tiny little cell. Well, I wonder what that was all about. So any number of possible explanations for that, I suppose. Could have been a cell, you know, could have been actually, if there were problems, you know, with the staff, maybe that's where they locked them up. It could be something that a hermit or a monk lived in. It could be storage, it could be a strong room for money or silver. This pattern here on the rock is interesting though, because I think what we're looking at here is the outline, possibly, of one of those volcanic vents. A vent tube. There's a ring of iron and then different minerals in the middle. I've seen a few bits like that here, where I think we're seeing, and here I think we might be seeing the cross section of one of those tubes. So you can see a dark kind of iron thing up there, another one on that side, and a lighter material in the middle. Very red here, and again that's going to be iron. So yeah, who knows what those are? If you know what those are, let me know in the comments. Oh, now there is a mine shaft without its protective wall, and that's as close as I'm going to that. That kind of needs a rebuild because the plastic fence they put across there is now dilapidated. And here we go, a view across the town of Mazarrón. Somewhere over there in the distance, although you can't really see them very well today, Las Peñas Blancas, the White Cliffs, where I visited in a previous video, and that was a lot of fun. Here's this chimney. Doesn't really seem to actually be attached to anything, but there must be something down there. I might see if I can get back down this side of the hill so we can take a closer look down there. Another wall around what's probably a mine shaft down there, and a view of the site from this side. Again, this could be the thumbnail. So we're now on top of those coloured hillsides that we saw first on the way into this video. So this is the top of those brightly coloured and varicolored hills There's more stuff over there, look, we could explore if we had the time. But we've got to draw the line somewhere. So let's head down this way. Get a slightly closer look at this flue and see what this is all about. What's it attached to? Pretty much built into the hillside, so I imagine this is just a flue for a furnace. So minerals will be shoveled in there with coal or coke, burned. Metal, or at least partly refined metal, comes out the bottom. But again, I think replacing an older one that was built into the hillside here, that there is that's a furnace that would have been used for smelting iron. There's a name for these, and they built them on the side of the hills like this because the prevailing wind would blow air in at the bottom, as well as the draw from the fire inside of there, drawing air up through. But they built them like this on the side of the hill on purpose, you know, so that the wind would feed them, and that would make the fire burn hotter, and it would make the metal easier to refine. This track looks a bit rough, but I hope we can get down here. Well, I was hoping we might have seen more evidence of minerals other than iron, of things other than iron here. But I think the lead and the silver and the copper was mined out before this ceased operation. And so it continued as an iron mining operation in its latter days. So I don't suppose we're going to find any spoil heaps with tiny traces of lead ore or anything like that in it. I have found some when we looked at the mines, the mining works up on Las Peñas Blancas. I found galena up there before. That's before I had a YouTube channel. I imagine this is another mine shaft. I can't even see over the top of that, so I'm not going to treat you to that either. It looks like we have to take quite a meandering path down. Well, we'll just have a look at these structures here, because these are similar to the ones we saw on the other side of the hill over there, which I think are settling tanks for some kind of mineral extraction. Let's see if I'm right. Well, honestly, I'm not quite sure what they are, but they do look like tanks rather than rooms. I'll show you why I think that in a minute. I mean, you can see that there's evidence of water lines there, of liquid being up against the walls there. But I'll show you why I think that is the case there, because these doors look like they were built to contain liquid. So, well, for one thing, there's a kind of moat around the edge here, which is very suggestive that there was some sort of liquid thing happening here. But the other one is that this door, although it is a door, you see it's got a rebate here. And I think probably a board or a metal plate was put in here to close this off. And the water pressure, the liquid pressure inside here would push that up against that rebate. And the door would be held in place by the pressure of the liquid here. There's all kinds of stuff caked onto the inside here as well, which again suggests to me that this was a settling pond for some kind of refinement process. Maybe just the refinement of the iron ores, because this does look like iron. It does just look like iron oxide. So maybe the heavier stuff was, you know, this heavier stuff settled out, and then they drew up that gate a little bit, and the heavies flowed out the bottom there first to go off to the refinery or something. But yeah, settling tanks of some sort, I'm sure. I mean, also you can see that all of the walls are leaning outwards, which tends to suggest they've been under pressure. It's all collapsing outwards. So perhaps up the top there, perhaps some of the machinery in that big machine room we saw was like a mill for pounding the ore into dust, and then it would be washed and the iron washed out of it, and then all of the stony spoil is this stuff here. Maybe. But I think actually here we're also on the base of a tank, or at least a settling pan of some sort. So perhaps it was allowed to spill out into here and then shoveled up or something like that. So yeah, I think that's been quite an interesting day. There's obviously a lot more here to explore and see, and if you know more about the history of this stuff, I imagine a lot of this would make more sense than it has to me. I've been trying to guess my way around some of this. I do know a little bit about some of the processes that are used to refine iron, so I'm making my best educated guesses, which are still pretty iffy probably. Let's head back down the hill and home. I can see my car from here. Well, not my car, it's a hire car. So I think in the context of what we've seen up the top there, it probably makes more sense that these different coloured hills here are actually slag heaps. This is the discard, the tailings from various processes, including smelting, but also concentration of ores and so on. So this is, a lot of this is probably the spoil from that. Certainly these blackened bits here are from the smelting. Perhaps these red and yellow bits over here and the grey bits are from the ore concentration. So thanks for joining me today on this wander around the mines of Mazarrón. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.